Well, hello there, you're watching the Press Preview. A first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with HuffPost UK's political editor, Gavin Schofield, and the Telegraph's assistant comment editor, Madeline. Great to see both of you. So let's see which of the newspapers are covering the latest news on Sir Gavin Williamson. Certainly the Eye does, leading with the resignation of Sir Gavin over allegations of bullying and reports claims that there were concerns that he couldn't be trusted with national security matters. Here is the Mail, their headline, Williamson forced out in cut-your-throat bully row. Likewise, The Times, Williamson quits amid new claims of bullying. The Guardian quotes one of his former deputies as a chief whip, calling him unethical and immoral. The Metro contrasts Matt Hancock's entry into I'm a Celebrity with Sir Gavin's exit from the government. The Star remarks on the challenges Mr Hancock can expect to face in the jungle, while the Mirror expects his fellow contestants will quiz him on his handling of the COVID crisis. The Express says its readers have played a part in apparently ensuring the pensions triple lock pledge isn't dropped from the Chancellor's upcoming autumn statement. And the Financial Times reporting on what it calls the near collapse of the cryptocurrency firm FTX. Well, a reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. But let's get the thoughts now of Gavin Schofield and Madeline Grant. Just two papers outliers there in the story of two MPs tonight, Madeline. So let's pick up, shall we, on Sir Gavin Williamson, who's decided to quit. Your thoughts?
Yes, he's quit, and after he said that his presence around the cabinet table was becoming too much of a distraction. But I think it was becoming too much of a political headache for Rishi Sunak to maintain his position there, given the outcry from many different sides of the Tory party over the alleged behaviour. And in fact, there was a great deal of bitterness and resentment left over from other wings of the party from the summer race, where Gavin Williamson was helping to manage Rishi Sunak's leadership contest. And I've spoken to quite a few MPs who report being very unhappy with some of the kind of traditional dark arts that were being deployed then, as they were deployed famously when Gavin Williamson served as chief whip during the Theresa May years. And it puts Rishi Sunak, I think, in a quite a difficult place, because now he's been forced to make an enemy of Gavin Williamson, who is, someone that you would probably want to have in the tent rather than out of it, as well as taking all of the political heat from having hired him in the first place, but without any of the upside. And it's, I think, reminiscent, despite the fact that Rishi Sunak is trying to break away from that feeling of chaos and uncertainty that hung around Boris Johnson's time in office. But it was that scenario that became very familiar during the Boris Johnson days, when the reverse ferret would generally happen, but sort of quite late in the day, late enough to get all of the annoyance, but not soon enough to get any of the credit for having acted.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it, that Rishi Sunak's only actually been in office for 2 weeks. Who'd have thought it? It's been quite turbulent, hasn't it, this period of political calm that everyone was looking forward to. But this idea of Sir Gavin, needing to be in the tent, is he really that influential, Kevin, or that dangerous?
Potentially, although I think now that he's left government for the third time, if you remember, he was sacked as Defence Secretary, he was sacked as Education Secretary, and now he's resigned this evening. I just wonder whether we might overstate a little bit his importance now. He's more a figure of fun, I think, as much as anything. I mean, it's true what Madeline says, he is a perpetrator of the dark arts, and he is someone, obviously, who Rishi Sunak depended on quite heavily in both leadership contests this year, which is why he gave him the job that he did. However, I think now he's so tainted, and we might yet see more revelations to come. And certainly these investigations that are going on, if they find against him, then I think his political career is well and truly over, if it isn't already. So, it is embarrassing for Rishi Sunak, absolutely no doubt about it. He stood on the steps of Number 10 2 weeks ago talking about professionalism and integrity, essentially trying to draw a line under the chaotic tenures of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. And as you say, here we are 2 weeks later, he's already lost a minister, and serious questions now about his judgment. You know, he was made aware of the complaint, the initial complaint against Gavin Williamson before he brought him into government. He went ahead and gave him a job anyway, and it's come back to bite him. So, yeah, I think he's in for quite a rough ride tomorrow at Prime Minister's questions.
Downing Street suggesting they knew of the generalities of this complaint, but not the specifics, I guess. But yes, more allegations to come. Well, what's the Eye saying tonight, Madeline? Suggestions that UK intelligence officials had accused him of becoming a risk to national security. His new cabinet job gave him oversight of UK security issues, despite Williamson being sacked as Defence Secretary back in 2019 for allegedly leaking highly sensitive information, which he denied, of course.
Well, precisely. I mean, I think you've said it. That is what they're reporting. I don't know any more detail about that story because I don't think I've had access to it yet. But this was something that Gavin Williamson was kind of known for around Westminster for being quite leak prone. So you can imagine that although Minister without portfolio was not perhaps the most key job in cabinet, if there were to be situations where he was looking at highly sensitive information, that might have rung a few alarm bells.
And the newspapers, many of them quoting the interview tonight done by his former deputy, Anne Milton, suggesting he was unethical about the threats. You know, how serious is it when it comes from somebody who worked alongside him in that way, Kevin?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an authentic, from the horse's mouth eyewitness account, really, of someone who saw Gavin Williamson up close, how he operated on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's quite a remarkable interview. She talks about how he loved salacious gossip, how he'd come into the office and talk about the various embarrassing aspects of MPs' personal lives. And then there was one occasion, according to Anne Milton, where one MP was in a bit of financial difficulty. So the party stepped in to help him with a cheque, which Anne Milton was to give to the MP in question. And Gavin Williamson apparently said to her, now just make sure that he knows that I now own him. Now, she says that he will probably say he was joking, but she says, as far as I'm concerned, he definitely was not joking. So I think that gives an insight into maybe the character of Gavin Williamson. And yeah, as I say, I think, you know, the longer this went on without some sort of end to it, with him leaving government, I think there might have been more revelations to come. He'd obviously made a lot of enemies during his time, both as chief whip and in his other government roles. And I think it was payback time for a lot of MPs. I think they could see that he was on the ropes, and this was their opportunity to settle some old scores. So yeah, I think, as I say, again, it just comes back to Rishi Sunak's judgment, really. He chose to bring him into government, and there was always a risk, given how divisive a character Gavin Williamson is, there was always a risk that it might end badly. I don't think anyone expected it to end quite as quickly as it has, but yeah, it has, and Rishi Sunak will be hoping that that sort of draws a line under it and he can perhaps move on. But I do think that it's not the last that we've heard of this story.
Yes, and certainly the Times brings in the prospect of, there's new bullying claims as well, Madeline. But, for somebody who's only been in office for 14 days, there have been difficulties, haven't there? Real questions over his appointment of Suella Braverman, who herself had only just resigned. Why was Sir Gavin Williamson back there? Why did he think going to COP was a good idea? And now, of course, he has to land the nation with what? Tax increases and public spending cuts. I mean, we're looking at another torrid 30 days of a Prime Minister, aren't we?
I think it was, given all of the above, it was never going to be a halcyon period for any prime minister. But I do think that that's right, that things seem to have become pretty wobbly pretty quickly, and actually that there was, I think, an initial feeling of general support for Sunak within the party, because MPs appreciated that this was the intro from hell. But all of that has been very quickly overtaken by events. And we're already getting to the stage now where there is acrimony from different sides of the party. Some of the problem, I think, was the kind of the tactics that Rishi Sunak had to employ in order to win in the first place. To have someone like Gavin Williamson on side who, uses whipping of the kind that maybe it's not alien to British politics by any stretch, but it feels like the kind of performative bruiser tactics that are more reminiscent of, a few administrations ago, perhaps, and also cracking a deal with Suella Braverman to bring more of the right of the party with her. So some chickens are coming home to roost, and all of this is going against the backdrop of the autumn statement next week and all of the likely possible tax increases and other things that are going to be very unpopular with Tory MPs, and yet more acrimony and yet more controversy beckons, I think.
Members too. I think the Daily Mail on their front page suggesting that Rishi may bring back the 50p tax rate, which was, almost the opposite of what we saw from that Liz Truss mini budget, was it not? But the Metro also, going in more detail about some of the allegations against Sir Gavin Williamson. One Tory MP suggesting he knows where the skeletons are buried. He's given me a few sleepless nights. Politics is about being tough and pushing people to do what you want, but this is on another level. I mean, what is it about somebody who's been a chief whip? Do they just continue to live the role and enact the dark arts at every opportunity, Kevin?
I don't think they're all like that. I mean, they all have different ways of doing the job. I think Gavin Williamson was a pretty unique character. You mentioned the performative element. I think that there was a bit of that. I think he enjoyed this reputation that he had for being this Machiavellian figure. Famously had his pet tarantula, Cronus, in a glass box on his desk as a way of threatening recalcitrant MPs. It's all a bit cliched, really. So I think Gavin Williamson, as Madeline says, was a bit of a throwback to the days when chief whips would use all sorts of nefarious tactics to get MPs to bend to their will. I think, they're not all like that these days, but he certainly did earn a reputation. And, I spoke to one Conservative a couple of days ago who said they would not go public with any criticism of him because they were frightened, basically, of what he could do to them in return. So, I mean, it's quite, incredible to hear that. So he did have a reputation, and it seems that he did obviously frighten quite a few people. And there will be a lot of Conservative MPs this evening will be relishing the fact that, in their view, he's getting his comeuppance, really, with this latest fall from grace.
Well, talking of creepy crawlies and giant spiders, in fact, too, we move on after the break from one politician who reportedly used those creepy crawlies to get his way to another who really doesn't like them. We'll look at Matt Hancock's entry into the I'm a Celebrity jungle. That's next. Watching the press preview with me now, Kevin Schofield and Madeline. Welcome back to both of you. So we move on to another politician, would you believe, Kevin? The Metro, he's in and he's out, helpfully annotating the two politicians we've been talking about this evening. It's a jungle out there, is it not? And the Daily Mirror speculating that actually the celebs will tackle him on COVID. I mean, what will he be facing, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Matt Hancock's official reason for taking this decision is that he wants to get in there and communicate directly with voters because they watch I'm a Celebrity, and he give an opportunity to talk about things like dyslexia, which is one of the issues which he has campaigned on. The problem is, though, he has got absolutely no control over what his campmates want to speak to him about. And the Mirror are saying they might want to pick him up on his performance as health secretary during the pandemic, and there might be criticism of some of the decisions that he and the government took at the time. So it could be a deeply uncomfortable, not least because he'll probably be made to eat unmentionable parts of animals' bodies, but he'll also be put on the spot by his campmates, as I say, to explain himself and his decisions during the pandemic. So if he thinks he's going to be getting an easy ride in there, or it's an opportunity to relaunch himself and reinvent himself, then I think he might be in for a bit of a rude awakening.
Well, Madeline, we've run out of time. Would you believe it? I do apologise. Daily Star, Fears of a Clown, revealed that he's petrified of all snakes. And the end of their first paragraph just says, this could be fun. Well, we will see, shall we? Both of you, it's been fun. Thank you both very much indeed.